Hello, class. For today, first day of class, I want to give you a little bit of an overview of organizational behavior. What is organizational behavior? So, for the first 3 or 4 days of this week, we're going to be focusing on Chapter One, kind of an overview of what organizational behavior is. And if you go to your Robbins book, you will find out that this particular chapter is going to introduce the concept of organizational behavior. And what it essentially does is it focuses on the what is individual understanding of behavior that is gained through experience. And also, for example, our values, our beliefs of how things should be versus how we see them. Now, that's kind of an interesting concept because when you first go, say, when you get hired for a company, you first go into the company, there's a certain personal expectation. Maybe when you interviewed, I don't know, but someone laid out a blueprint in your mind of what the organization was going to be like. Well, of course, you wouldn't get hired unless you had the skill set, right? But having the skill set is only one part of the equation when you work somewhere. A big part of the equation is how do you fit? Your expectations versus how things are actually done in the company. So what managers traditionally do is they traditionally try to help you to adjust to a new environment so that the expectations of what you think you're getting into and the way things actually are come closer together. So what we label that as systematic organizational behavior that managers use to make employment and employment practices more effective. So many of the important challenges that are being faced by today's managers are going to be described in the 3 levels of OB study. Now, the outline of the text really describes in relationships to these 3 levels, starting with the first. The first level is the individual level. Remember, no matter how many employees a company has, if it has 10,000 employees or if it has 10 employees, the idea is that the behavior of the culture and the success of the organization is highly built on the skill set of each individual that is within the organization. So, for example, if you have 10,000 people in a company, you have 10,000 different integrated cultures. That's why, as we study further in this course, we're going to realize how important diversity is. So, getting by Chapter 1, kind of an overview of things, we're going to be able to, and these go to the objectives of the chapter, define organizational behavior. And obviously I've been saying OB, it refers to OB throughout the course. The second thing is to show the value, and I kind of briefly discussed this earlier here, of what we call the systematic study of OB. And then finally, to identify the major behavioral science disciplines that contribute to OB. So initially, when we go through this entire chapter, okay, we're going to talk about, like, how did OB even get involved? When did we begin to study about it? And I kind of gave you a little bit of an overview of what it is, but this goes into a little bit of the history of OB. And excuse me, the next thing is we're going to talk about, how do we integrate or how do we differentiate between management and organizational behavior? So what we essentially want to do is we want to define what OB is and basically look at the practices of management. In my mind, I always look at OB as the culture set or the integration of the skill set to the job function and to the environment around us. The next thing we're going to look at is what they call, and this is in your book, complementing intuition with what we refer to as systematic study. And the thing is, like I said earlier about, how you perceive things, people develop, and this is right in your book, intuitive understandings of the behaviors of other people through their own experience. And, experience is a big part of what you bring into the organization. So we're going to talk about the experiential or common sense method of how do we read human behavior, and if we're very judgmental and biased about it, we're going to make erroneous predictions. So we have to be more open-minded to different things. And we're going to be looking at some of the other disciplines that integrate with OB. What are some of the other fields? And you find that there will be psychology, social psychology, sociology, anthropology, and so forth. And we're going to look at some of the absolutes in OB, excuse me. And then finally, what are some of the challenges and opportunities for OB? So I think that, going through all of this chapter, you kind of get an overview of where the course is heading, what OB is all about. And remember, every day there is a folder of what you need to do. This is kind of a little bit of a much more lengthy overview of a chapter that I'm going to give you on any one of the other ones. It's a little bit long-winded because it's kind of setting the format, not only to this chapter, but to the course of what it means. But in short, throughout the course, we start with studying the individual. From the individual, we go to the groups, which are made up of individuals, and then we go from the groups to the entire organization. Groups could be departments in a company. So that's kind of it for right now. And all you got to do is follow what's happening in the folder from day to day. So after you listen to this video, you got a lot of nice, neat links that you can click and watch for today that I've put. In addition to that, what I want you to do is I want you to reflect on everything you've gone through today, on knowing what's to come. Don't try to get too ahead of yourself. And it's important to read and to listen to all the video cams. It's important to read the chapters. So if I'm covering a particular chapter this week, for example, this week I'm going to be covering chapters 1 and 2. And 2 is going to focus, I believe, on diversity. Very much about what I mentioned earlier. A lot of OB has to do with diversity. So good luck with the first day. Get through the readings, look at the links, and then look at next day, which will be the 23rd, tomorrow.